This week in Idaho, Micron's $50 billion Boise expansion, unofficially, is delayed. The U.S. Supreme Court takes Idaho's transgender case, and BSU lands a major conference upgrade for the Broncos. Plus, new developments on the survivor from the Idaho Firefighter ambush. That and so much more. This is the Yocal Idaho Midweek Report, where we give you an overview of the news in Idaho for the last week. Welcome, happy Wednesday. We're halfway through the week and halfway to go. I know all of you that probably had a 4-day weekend, for all you lucky ducks out there, maybe it's government jobs. I don't know. I know some people that had some free time or paid time off. See, as a contractor, I've forgotten about it completely. But you get that free time off. Some of you used it to have a nice 4-day weekend, which would have been nice, but news sleeps for no one. You probably can tell by the bags underneath my eyes, but you had a wonderful 4-day weekend, and this very short work week isn't too much for you. Speaking of the holiday, I hope you had a great one. I enjoyed mine down here in the Treasure Valley with some wonderfully cool weather we've been having, plus some wonderful food as always. But coming back to the weather part of it, I don't know if it's just me or if Idaho weather is being weird this summer. Bear with me. I feel like Idaho's summers generally, you have, here in the valley anyways, where I've grown up, you've got your initial kind of May, April, where Idaho can't figure itself out, which is usually what the transition seasons are like. Fall and spring are just Idaho trying to figure out what it wants to be. And then you usually either set into winter or summer, where Idaho finally decides to either bake you or freeze you. But this summer down in the Treasure Valley, it hasn't quite seemed to follow that usual track record. It's been like, okay, I'm going to get really hot, and then I'm going to go really, really low again, or not really low, but low for the summertime anyways. And then I'll slowly climb up again, and then just this like cyclical up and down, which I'm not used to. I'm normally used to it, and I guess I'll have to look at the weather's almanac or farmer's almanac. But I'm so used to it usually being like, okay, we warm up, and then we like 100, 90, 80, 100, but it isn't happening this year, which I'm not complaining about. It's just different. I'm not used to having as many cool up and downs, but I will take it. It is nice to be outside and make it feel like fall, and we're not completely being baked until October when it finally relents. But coming back to the show, this week is a little bit more laid back than last week. Last week felt like a whirlwind on the news, and if you didn't catch it, go check out last week's episode. There is a ton of really good news over there. But for this week, in our more casual, relaxed episode, as we heard earlier, there is the unofficial delays at Micron, the Supreme Court looking at our transgender ban in sports, BSU to continue with the sports theme, and some updates on their conference, and some stuff about the Idaho Firefighter ambush and the survivor. For the middle, we have an ingenious way to help fund our national parks that is coming out in the new budget report for them. Churches being able to speak about politics. That one is a personal favorite of mine that'll be very interesting to look at. And a Democrat announces that he'll be running against Risch, but not as a Democrat. And to close out, we'll have news about a possible 4th Costco in the Treasure Valley. Homeschool families and large ones can rejoice, possibly, if it gets approved. And Pickleball in Boise gets into a pickle. You have no idea how long I've wanted to make that joke. And Idaho's turkey tracker to close us out. Yes, it'll be fun to get to all of that, so please stay with us till the end for those stories and much more. Starting off with the first one here, Micron's massive Boise expansion has grown from a $15 billion project, because we like our billions lately, to a staggering $50 billion investment, making it one of Idaho's largest construction projects ever by investment. But the timeline on it keeps shifting, and questions persist about who's actually funding the bill. Originally, Micron said production would start in 2025. If you've noticed, we're currently in it. Then it was pushed to 2026, and now they're saying 2027. The company wouldn't directly say the project is behind schedule. Instead, they're claiming that they're, quote, optimizing designs, cost, and schedule, which we all know is corporate speak for delays. As for how the money breaks down, Micron plans to spend $25 billion in the first fabrication facility and is getting approximately $1.5 billion from the CHIPS Act. The other $25 billion is on a second fab, which appears to not have gotten any CHIPS Act funding yet. It may in the future. This is all private investment from Micron and not very much federal funding, which is encouraging to see, despite earlier confusion on that. The federal government's role appears limited to regulations and potential future incentives rather than direct spending. Micron's spokesperson cited federal regulations that prevent them from discussing details during earnings season. While construction continues at the Federal Way site, Idahoans are watching closely. A 2-year delay on a project this massive raises legitimate concerns about whether other promised timelines will actually hold. And then coming to the Supreme Court, which was on fire a couple weeks ago, this one is just going to be a little bit more delayed, has agreed to hear our state's case about transgender athletes in women's sports. This marks a major victory for Idaho, which became the first state to pass this kind of law back in 2020. I can't believe that's been 5 years. It feels like yesterday. Anywho, the case called Little versus Hecox centers on Idaho's Fairness in Women's Sports Act. This law prevents transgender athletes from competing on women's and girls' teams in schools and universities across our state. The case started when Lindsay Hecox, a transgender student at Boise State, tried out for the women's track team but didn't make it. Governor Little has expressed confidence that our law will stand up in court. Quote, "I'm confident Idaho's common sense laws to defend women's sports will prevail," Little said. Attorney General Rao Labrador echoed the sentiment, stating that, quote, "Idaho's women and girls deserve an equal playing field," end quote. Representative Barbara Earhart from Idaho Falls, who sponsored the original bill, predicted that this would reach the Supreme Court from the very beginning. She plans to attend the hearing when it takes place. The Supreme Court will hear arguments this fall and make their final decision in 2026. Since Idaho has led the way in 2020, 26 other states have passed similar laws, so we're not alone. This ruling could affect all those states and set a nationwide precedent for how schools handle this issue. The case represents a pivotal moment for protecting opportunities for female athletes in our state and across the country. And speaking of sports, college sports teams compete in groups called conferences, kind of like leagues. Trust me, this will make sense in a second for those of us that aren't sports people. Our Boise State Broncos have played in the Mountain West Conference for years. Think of it as being in a good regional league if you've done anything with sports. But now the Broncos are moving up to the big leagues. The Pac-12 Conference just became whole again after Texas State joined last week. This completes what the Broncos need, a full conference with 8 football teams. As for what happened on this, the old Pac-12 fell apart in 2024, when most schools left for other conferences. Only Oregon State and Washington State stayed behind. They needed to rebuild, so they invited the best Mountain West teams to join them. The Broncos accepted last September, along with Colorado State, Fresno State, San Diego State, and Utah State. Gonzaga also joined for non-football sports. The move becomes official next July. As for why does this matter? Obvious question asked, especially for someone like me that's not hugely into sports. The Pac-12 offers more money, better TV deals, and higher prestige than the Mountain West. Broncos will compete against stronger teams and get more national attention. Athletic director Jeremy Dickey calls this move transformational for Boise State. The Broncos play their final Mountain West season this fall before making the jump. And then coming back to the horrible situation that happened up in northern Idaho, Dave Tysdal continues to recover after the tragic Canfield Mountain shooting that shook our firefighters. The Coeur Fire Department reports that doctors performed a third successful surgery on Tysdal this week. The 47-year-old engineer can now speak after doctors removed his ventilator. His condition has improved from critical to stable, though he remains in intensive care. Tysdal suffered severe chest and spinal trauma when a 20-year-old Wes Rowley ambushed firefighters responding to a brush fire on June 29th. If you didn't know the whole context or live under a rock, 2 battalion chiefs died in that attack: Frank Harwood, Kootenai County Fire and Rescue, and John Morrison of the Coeur d'Alene Fire Department. Both men served our community for decades. Doctors say they feel optimistic about Tysdal's progress. They warn, though, he faces months ahead to fully heal. Red and Blue Foundation have set up donations to help Tysdal's family during this difficult time. Our firefighters continue to deserve our continued prayers and support as they continue to protect us daily, or for those that are recovering in the hospital. If you'd like that first set of stories, do us a favor and hit the like and subscribe/follow button on YouTube, Rumble, or Twitter. Helps us stay connected with you, so you can stay connected about what's going on in the beautiful state of Idaho. And speaking of the beautiful state of Idaho, we have many beautiful landmarks, including the rest of the nation, and the Department of Interior wants to solve a growing problem at our national parks with some common sense thinking. While they're cutting the National Park Service budget by a third next year, they're also proposing something that has been tested: charging international visitors more to enter our parks. Now, at first, I know this might sound crazy, but think of it this way. When you buy a fishing license here, we all know this, you pay less because you live here and already support these places through your taxes. Non-residents pay more. Just like if I go over to Oregon, I've got to pay more for my fishing license because I don't subsidize it with my taxes there because I don't live there. The same logic would apply to our national parks. Right now, for example, a family from France pays the same $35 to enter Yellowstone as you and me do. But other countries don't work this way. The Galapagos Islands, in all their wonderful evolution, take it at that, charge foreigners about $200 while locals pay just about $30. The case that is being made is that we're leaving money on the table. Our parks do badly need this revenue. Yellowstone alone needs over $1 billion in repairs. The entire park system faces $23 billion in maintenance backlog. This international surcharge could generate more than $90 million annually, is what's being estimated, to help fix crumbling roads, buildings, and facilities. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum put it where, quote, way undercharging, end quote. People who travel thousands of miles to see these bucket list destinations. A modest fee increase won't probably stop them from coming, but it helps us keep these treasures beautiful for future generations. And speaking of something that had people scared about our great outdoors, but another aspect you may have missed, the big beautiful bill passed, but senators stripped out a provision that would have protected states from a patchwork of AI regulations. The Senate voted 91 against and 1 in favor to remove what would have been a 10-year moratorium on states' AI rules. As for the two sides on this, Idaho business leaders had pushed hard for this protection. They argued that conflicting state regulations could burden small businesses and drive innovation away from our region. Companies like Simplot and Sterling Urgent Care, man, those are small businesses, warned that navigating dozens of different AI laws across state lines could crush local entrepreneurs who can't afford compliance teams. As for those for it, Senator Marsha Blackburn led the charge to kill the provision, arguing that states need to protect children and consumers from AI harms. She said Congress has failed to act on tech issues, leaving states to fill the gap. As for a lot of these things, the question that usually comes up, was this wise? The Senate chose to let states regulate AI rather than create federal certainty for businesses. This decision prioritizes state authority over economic efficiency. But it may also mean our local companies face regulatory chaos while competing against China's unified AI approach. Only the future will tell if this was wise or foolish. And speaking of red tape and it getting out of the way in a very good way, the IRS just made a major shift that returns churches to their historic role in American politics. After decades of restricting what pastors could say about candidates, the agency now says churches can endorse political candidates from the pulpit. This comes from a court filing where the IRS settled a lawsuit from 2 Texas churches. The agency said when pastors speak to their congregations about candidates, they're treating it like, quote, a family discussion concerning candidates, end quote, not a public campaigning. What we're seeing, and looking at history, isn't revolutionary or groundbreaking, but more restoration than anything else. For over 200 years, from the founding until 1954, churches actively engaged in political discourse without restriction. Church leaders spoke publicly on major issues like the American Revolution, slavery, and territorial expansion. They drove campaigns for Sunday blue laws and sent thousands of signed protests to Congress. The Johnson Amendment, which is at the core of this, only emerged in 1954, when Senator Lyndon B. Johnson, that name might sound familiar if you know your history, wanted to silence a nonprofit group opposing his re-election. In conclusion, this ruling removes any artificial barriers that separate churches from civic engagement for just 70 years out of the nearly 250 years of American history. Churches can now again fulfill their biblical mandate to speak to the culture and guide their congregations according to moral principles found in God's Word. And staying with politics but coming more local, former Democrat Representative Todd Achilles just made a move in Idaho's political landscape. The Boise Army veteran announced he'll challenge Senator Jim Risch in the 2026 race, but not as a Democrat. Achilles says he's responding to voter frustration with both parties, getting, quote, pulled further and further into the corners, end quote. He pointed out that unaffiliated voters in Idaho outnumber registered Democrats by more than 2 to 1. Rather than calling the Democratic Party toxic, Achilles framed this as both parties failing to serve political folks in the middle who want, quote, something that's pragmatic, has common sense, and just does the hard work, end quote. As for the reality of it, let's be honest, Republicans have won every Senate race here since 1978. Achilles likely recognizes this reality, but his move to independent status suggests he's seeing an opening with a growing number of unaffiliated voters. His platform focuses on housing costs, protecting public lands, and economic issues affecting younger generations. Whether this strategy can crack Idaho's solid Republican foundation remains the big question as we head towards 2026. Did you know about the changes to the Johnson Amendment, or Achilles' announcement to go independent, or let alone the different things happening with the Supreme Court related to Idaho? If you didn't, please don't hesitate to share this episode with friends and family so they can know about it as well, and be informed and engaged about what's happening in our wonderful state. And speaking of something a little less political and going into the backcountry, last week brought some tense moments at the Palisades Reservoir when a plane crashed into the water just after 11 a.m. on June 30th. Thankfully, this story does have a good ending. The pilot walked away without any injuries. As for what happened, the pilot was trying to land at the airport, but undershot the runway. He couldn't maintain enough airspeed and ended up hitting the water instead. A boat on the lake quickly came to his rescue. Bonneville County Sheriff's deputies and Star Valley Rescue responded to the scene. The pilot was taken to the Star Valley Emergency Center as a precaution, but he sustained no injuries. The Federal Aviation Administration and National Transportation Safety Board are now investigating what went wrong. Granted, we know a little bit about that. Crews are working, though, to remove the plane from the reservoir, and deputies are asking boaters to stay clear of the area while they finish their work. It is a reminder, when things go wrong, we can be very grateful when lives are spared. And speaking of destruction, sadly, the more common thing here in Idaho, the Garden Creek fire blazed across more than 1,000 acres near Fort Hall this last week, forcing officials to evacuate 400 LDS youth from a nearby camp. The fire started on Tuesday afternoon at 6:30 p.m. and quickly spread from the Garden Creek to Blackfoot River, driven by winds reaching about 35 miles per hour. Fire Chief Eric King reported that crews had contained about 30% of the blaze, but several homes remained threatened. Granted, we're recording this a little bit in the rear, so you have to check to see if those numbers are up to date. The Bingham County Sheriff's Office coordinated with the Teton Stage Lines to bus and evacuate youth to an Idaho Falls high school for the night. Multiple agencies are battling the fire as of our recording of this, including the North Bannock County Shelley's Fire Department, Bannock Fire Department, and Bureau of Land Management. Aircraft are dropping fire retardant while dozens clear fire lines to stop the spread. Officials have lifted evacuation orders for residents near Presto Road and Little Indian Canal Road, but a burn ban remains in effect. Investigations suspect that the fire may have been man-made and ask residents to avoid the area and keep drones grounded, because if they go up in the air, the fire crews can't do their thing. It's not good at all. And then coming back to the Treasure Valley, the Ford Idaho Center, which you may or may not have been at, may soon have new owners. Nampa officials want to transfer our largest entertainment venue here in the Treasure Valley to the College of Western Idaho. Mayor Debbie Kling believes the city has held back the property's potential. She thinks CWI can better serve the community by expanding the center's offers. CWI President Gordon Jones agrees, saying that the college can, quote, envision and activate, end quote, the property while keeping all the events we love. As for what this means for you in Nampa, if you attend concerts or events there, nothing changes. Oak View Group will likely continue managing day-to-day operations. The same great shows and activities will continue. As for if you want to rent the space, you'll still be able to book events, but CWI may offer new opportunities. They're planning to add agricultural programs, event management training, and early childhood education. This could mean a more diverse, editor can put something in there, programming, and educational tie-ins. Your property taxes won't increase also, another concern with that, and the auditorium district funding stays in place. Both councils will vote in August, with the transfer potentially completed by September, so there's plenty of time if you disagree with this to put your input into it. And then traveling even further west, out near Filler, which you may or may not have seen, tucked in the Snake River Canyon, sits a little slice of Idaho history that most folks drive right past. Kelly's Canyon Orchard just wrapped up its 117th season, and that's no small feat. Robin Kelly tends the same cherry trees his great-grandfather planted back in 1908. That makes her family's orchard one of our state's longest-running agricultural operations. But 2024 nearly broke that streak when an April freeze wiped out their entire crop. Quote, "We're trying to do the best we can," Kelly says, and that spirit shows. While other businesses might fold after losing a whole year's income, Kelly's pressed on. Now Robin's daughter, Sydney, represents the 5th generation that is working the family stand. As for what keeps it going, it's a little bit more than just selling cherries. Visitors can drive out there to disconnect from their phones and reconnect with something real. The orchard is open Wednesdays through Sundays, and they haul fresh fruit to the Boise Farmers Market too. Sometimes the old ways are the best, especially when families stick together through tough times. Which, speaking of sticking together through hard times, maybe consider subscribing. That way you can keep up on all the wonderful Idaho content we talk about and be the most informed Idahoan in the room. And speaking of something as Idahoans we love to talk about, the weather, but in a less happy way. Weather officials have raised eastern Idaho to a red flag warning status, as dry conditions and incoming thunderstorms create dangerous fire conditions. The National Weather Service issued the warning after forecasters predicted winds could reach about 45 miles an hour last week, combined with low humidity and dry fuel on the ground. Bureau of Land Management Specialist Chris Berger, man, that is a wonderful last name, warns that field conditions have become dry enough to support rapid fire growth. He points to the recent Garden Creek fire near Fort Hall, which quickly spread when thunderstorms and winds hit the area. That fire burned over about 5,000 acres, so it's a little bit more updated, but firefighters contained it. Quote, "It isn't just a firefighter thing, it's an everybody thing," Berger says, reminding folks to stay alert during outdoor activities. The timing concerns officials as the 4th of July weekend brought many visitors to the area. Weather conditions make it easier for fires to start and spread rapidly. In conclusion, residents who spot smoke should immediately call 911 or the Eastern Idaho Interagency Fire Center at 208-524-7600. Officials stress that quick reporting helps firefighters respond before small blazes become major ones. And speaking of a red alert, but in a very good way for the Treasure Valley, if most people here, we're getting some fresh details about the Costco that could come to Meridian Road near the Kuna border. The permit shows that it won't just be another warehouse store. The plans include a gas station with 18 pumps, because if you've ever been by a Costco, you know they can never have enough of those, and a distribution center where crews will deliver big items like appliances right to your door. They designed the parking lot with 903 spaces and 5 ways to get in and out, 1 from the Meridian one, 2 from Lake Hazel, and 2 from Spire Street. This could be, for context, the 4th Costco in the Treasure Valley. Local families are obviously excited about shorter drives, especially those in the Century Farm and Southwest Boise, who currently trek about 25 minutes to other locations. But traffic worries remain, like most things. Amanda Schindel from Southwest Boise says she's excited, but concerned about more cars on the already busy Meridian Road and Lake Hazel. The cities still must approve these plans before anything can move forward. Right now, we're just looking at what could happen if Meridian gives the green light to this project. And speaking of a pickle, pickleball has exploded across our state and the nation, a game that I still need to play. I know I got friends bothering me, but I'll get to it, I swear. The sport has grown by 158% nationally in just 3 years, and Boise ranks among the top 10 cities for the game. Didn't know that one. But this boom brings challenges, like anything that grows that fast. Patrick Doherty and Kathleen Romito just sued the city of Boise over noises from the pickleball courts near their home. They live next to the Willow Lane Athletic Complex, where tennis courts became pickleball courts in 2018. The couple calls the sound, quote, a relentless and chaotic auditory onslaught. Man, that is a sentence right there, end quote. Here's the key difference, and it's not completely unwarranted. Pickleball paddles and plastic balls create sounds 20 decibels louder than tennis, which could affect the noise ordinances in the area. It makes a sharp pop that happens when it hits, something I need to hear at some point. The couple has complained to the city since 2020, sending over 50 emails to officials. The city, in response, has cut hours to 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. and locked the gates. But players have climbed over and kept playing. Doherty uses a wheelchair after a motorcycle accident, making it hard for them to move. They want the courts closed permanently by December. This case does show how fast growth can create unexpected conflicts. It'll be interesting to see how it gets resolved. And then coming to our last story, and a funny one, last summer, Idaho Fish and Game launched something pretty innovative. The Turkey Tracker Project. I know, don't chuckle right off, we'll get into it, you'll see why. This marks one of our state's first formal efforts to survey wild turkey populations, and it's surprisingly worked better than anyone expected. As for how it does, regular folks like you and me spot turkeys as we're enjoying our wonderful state, going around fishing and all the other wonderful stuff, and report what we see on the Fish and Game's website. You just have to note how many birds you saw and which county you were in. Simple as that. The results, though, speak for themselves. By the end of 2024, Idahoans have logged over 1,400 turkey sightings across the state, which is pretty incredible. The people really stepped up to help with this. As for why this matters, wild turkeys aren't native to Idaho, something that I did not know until this story. We introduced them starting in 1961. Today, an estimated 50,000 turkeys roam Idaho, but without good data on how well they're reproducing and where they're thriving, it's tough to make smart decisions about how to manage them. The project focuses especially on July and August, when hens are with their young. When people observe these broods, it helps biologists understand reproductive rates and population health. This citizen scientist approach demonstrates how we can collaborate to responsibly steward our wildlife resources and hopefully make a tastier turkey dinner for Thanksgiving. Speaking of which, I'm going to go off and get some more food, and hopefully you have some delicious food to snack on as well. I sincerely hope you found the whole report enjoyable and valuable. If you like the Midweek report, make sure to check out our other content on our Substack, X account, and other social media. Also, if we missed any important points or provided incorrect information, please feel free to reach out to us via email or on Twitter by tweeting us at @LocalYokalIdaho. With the small team we have, we're not able to cover everything, but we do our best to cover the most interesting and important stories. Thank you for your continued support and assistance. That's all for now, and I wish you a fantastic rest of your week. Godspeed.